Hey guys, Garage Maxed Out here. Today I'm going to do a video on this Lazarro B-flat clarinet. A few weeks ago I did a video on a Lazarro saxophone. I was really impressed and I decided, hey, why don't I pick up a Lazarro clarinet and see what I think. The two clarinets standing beside it are a LeBlanc Pete Fountain Big Easy and then a Yamaha YCL, which is pretty. It's a pretty old student instrument. I had it for about 15 years, but it's actually what I play on most when I'm just fooling around. So I want to show you guys two reasons why you should buy a Lazarro, two reasons why you shouldn't buy a Lazarro, and then at the end I'll kind of give you my thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, so let me give you kind of just an overview of these three clarinets. I think the Yamaha YCL series is probably what most of you are looking at if you're a beginner starting to get into clarinets. These are very common if you're going to like a music store and you're going to rent one. It's a composite body, it's a cut down bone keywork style, and overall like this is kind of like an industry standard, right? Like most people who start out are probably going to get this Yamaha beginner or a Selmer beginner, and obviously I've had it for 10 or 15 years. They hold up really, really well. The Pete Fountain that I have here, this LeBlanc, most people, like if you're going, pro or into college or whatever, you're probably going to be looking at the Buffet R13. This is essentially what I'd call like an intermediate clarinet, but the cool thing about this is it's got an enhanced bone, so it's got additional G-sharp articulations here. It's not a full bone, so it doesn't have like some of the lower notes that the full bone B-flat clarinet has, but it's a wood body. It's got a really good sound. It's a wider bore than a standard clarinet, so it's got a really big sound. And then the Lazarro here is essentially what looks to be some sort of copy from a Japanese clarinet, in that it's a composite body, which they make it look kind of like wood, even to the degree that it's got some like a convex shape at the top here of each of the pieces. Additionally, the key work, if I put it side by side with my Yamaha, is really, really similar, but there are a few differences. I think if you were to look at this not knowing which brand is which, you'd probably guess that the Lazarro is a higher end instrument than the Yamaha, and the reason for that is a lot of the keys are bigger and the mechanisms look a lot more robust. Let me zoom in and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so on the right is the Lazarro, on the left is the Yamaha, and if I go up, here's a really good example. So you can see here, this mechanism versus this mechanism looks much more robust, like it's much bigger, thicker mechanism. Same thing with the joint key work here. You can see right here, much thicker than this one. And you can see my Yamaha's got some mileage on it. But overall, it looks very robust. The same cut down bone fingering system that you'd expect on most beginner clarinets here. Okay, but let's go ahead and look and see how they act. Okay, so this one's got some thicker key work, looks pretty robust, but does that really mean anything? Well, maybe if you got a student that's going to beat it up, maybe it means something. In terms of playability, not really. I'm going to go ahead and play all three of these for you, and essentially the setup that I'm going to be using is a Van Doren B45 mouthpiece with a Robner ligature, along with a Van Doren 56 3 hardness reed, and then a Bakun barrel here. And I'll just kind of move it over just to keep consistency with each of them, and we'll start with the Yamaha here. Compare that for you first with the LeBlanc. And then we'll go to the Lazarro here. selected those notes specifically to play because it brings me to the first reason why you wouldn't want to buy this Lazarro. And if you listen closely, you can hear that the upper register of the Lazarro is really, really out of tune. Right? I'm doing a lot with my embouchure to try and keep it in tune, but it's very difficult to keep this one in tune at the upper registers. Now that said, if you look at the lower register, it's relatively in tune, like it plays pretty well. So I think for a beginner, is that a drawback? Not really, like they're not going to be up in the upper register, but that said, it kind of shortens the lifespan of this because it means that you're going to have to upgrade it after a few years once they get up into the upper register. So I think that's the first reason not to get the Lazarro. Second reason is a part of the clarinet is alternate fingerings, and the initial passage that I played for you guys was an alternate fingering of a high D, and for this Lazarro, very, very out of tune. But then you look at a Yamaha beginner clarinet, and it's much more in tune. And that kind of theme is across all of the alternate fingerings. If I look at so I just used the B fingering with my left pinky. I'm going to do the same thing on the Lazarro, and you can hear it. It just doesn't work, and out of the box, this left pinky B doesn't close this hole enough. Now if I use the right pinky one, the right pinky one works. And I'll show you guys on a LeBlanc how seamless that should be. There should be no difference. There's no difference on a proper clarinet. So for alternate fingerings, there may need to be some tweaking that's done on this Lazarro to make it play better. Now for that specific one, I can tell it's just this armature that's bent, and I haven't fixed it yet because I wanted to show you guys how off it was when I bought the clarinet. It's a relatively simple fix. But that's the second reason why I would say, hey, you may not want to buy one of these, right? You can order it off of Amazon, but if you don't already know how to play a chromatic scale and you're not comfortable doing a few small tweaks, the Lazarro probably isn't going to be the instrument for you. Let me get into the two things that are reasons why I would buy one of these things, and I'll start by playing the Lazarro again. So on a register that is going to be very common where beginners are playing, now I have a pretty nice microphone on my camera, and it's very unlikely that you're going to hear a difference because any difference is probably just going to be me, not the clarinet. And in the low register, this clarinet plays perfectly. So if you can tweak the key work so that the alternate fingerings work, a beginner is likely going to have no issues playing, and it seems as though they've focused a lot on ensuring that the lower beginner registers are in tune, which is really, really awesome. I'll go and just play that same thing on the LeBlanc so that you can kind of hear it. Now obviously this is a much better sounding instrument. This is a wooden clarinet. And it's in perfect condition. I just had it fully restored by Chenemo Woodwinds. Highly recommended, by the way, if you're in the Seattle area. But let me bring you guys to the second reason why I would buy this clarinet. If I look at something like this LeBlanc, and you're going to go out and you're going to spend a few $1,000s on an instrument, for a beginner, spending a few $1,000s doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a better instrument or a better experience. And the reason for that is the body composition on a higher end clarinet is generally going to be wood. But with a beginner, they're much more likely not to take care of it. They may join marching band and be outside, things like that. And for a more delicate instrument like these higher end ones, it's not the right choice. And so when you have in front of you a a Lazarro for $100 versus a LeBlanc for a few $1,000s, I would highly recommend a Lazarro over something like a wooden buffet or LeBlanc. And the reason for that is the composite body holds up to the elements. No matter if you're in dry climate, humid climate, whatever, it's not going to break down. You're not going to have risk of cracking. It's going to be relatively foolproof. All you got to do is swab it every time you play, and you're not going to have any issues. So once you get this thing playing, for the first 4 or 5 years of a student's time learning it, it's going to be a great frustration-free instrument. It's one of the reasons why I really like playing my Yamaha. I don't have to worry about, hey, you know, is the humidity right for me to play my wooden one? I can just take this thing out and play it. Now, even with the Yamaha, this is something that's going to cost you between $600 and $800 versus something that's going to cost you $100. So I think that is the second reason why I would buy one of these Lazarros. Okay, so what do these Lazarros come with, and would I buy one? So the Lazarros come with this really cool case. It's got like these backpack straps. It's got a bunch of handles on it. It's a pretty durable case. Like I feel comfortable throwing this thing around, not worry about the clarinet inside it. It does come, this one came with 2 barrels, which is kind of cool. You're probably going to have a 64 millimeter and a 65 millimeter. This is a 64 millimeter Bakun barrel. This is actually more for like European tuning. You want a 65 actually, but I got a good deal on this one. So it's going to come with 2 barrels. It's going to come with a relatively good mouthpiece actually. It's not too open, which will allow you to start on a 1.5 hardness reed and then work your way up, which I think is really cool. I think the only thing I would upgrade out of the box is I would get one of these Rovner ligatures. And these are pretty cheap. I think you can get these for right around 20 bucks nowadays. But it's going to come with everything that you need to play. And I think cutting to the chase here, would I buy one of these? Well, I think for a beginner, you're going to want to avoid anything made out of wood. Any of the higher end clarinets, they're going to be made out of wood outside of like a green line, and you want to avoid those for a beginner. So the choice is going to come down to something like a $600 Yamaha like this YCL versus a $100 Lazarro. And if it were me and I were starting all over, I think I actually would go with the Lazarro. And the reason for that is, like, I know what it's like to be a beginner in a band. You're probably not going to have a student who's taking super good care of things anyway, and these things are pretty robust. Like, I didn't have any issues with any of the tenon rings. Everything is pretty well put together. Yes, there are a few linkages that are not quite closing properly, but it's a very small fix. And I think if I had the opportunity to get one on like Amazon or something where I could just easily return it if it didn't work out, would definitely be the way that I go. Now that said, when I compare the keywork on this Yamaha, again, I've had this for I think 13 years. I haven't had to replace any pads. I haven't had to do anything with any of the keywork. And I started on this clarinet. I got this clarinet the second year of my time in band, and it's really held up. So I think if you have a good inclination that your student is going to stick with it and is going to be in band for a long time, the Yamaha is a great purchase at something like $600–700. I think if your student is on the fence or you're not sure how the student is going to take care of an instrument, you can't go wrong with the Lazarro. Again, the only 2 issues that I saw with this clarinet are intonation on the very highest register and the key linkages for the pinky fingers, which is a relatively straightforward fix. So I think that's my take on this clarinet. I would recommend it. I'm going to show you guys a couple of links in the description so you can do some shopping on your own and check it out. But that's my opinion on the Lazarro. Hope it helps somebody.